This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. You know, I love finding out about people. I love understanding why people do what they do. And I like to know people's genuine and authentic perspective. It's my shtick. It's my bag, baby. It's something I like to do. And so, you know, one of the people I've always been interested in knowing a little bit more about is joining the show this evening. And, you know, it's interesting because when you see somebody on TV playing a certain role, you know, you start wondering what goes through their mind. But more than that, how did they get to where they are? What do they believe in? What are their values? And what makes them an individual? What makes him extremely authentic? And what can you and I connect with when we talk to them? And so joining me this evening is Tony Denison. Tony joined the cast of The Closer as Detective Andy Flynn in 2005, and that quickly became TNT's #1 drama. And then Tony transitioned into the show Major Crimes, and a lot of us are waiting for the new series coming out here in just a few weeks. Tonight I'm going to be asking Tony some questions and asking about his perspective on different subject matters. You know, the fascination that we have with crime dramas, about his upbringing, about his parents, about his environment, about what matters to him. And I'll probably ask some big questions too later on down the road because you know how I do this. But you know, the most important thing about this show is that we realize that we're not really that different. And that no matter what somebody's title or position in life, we're all human and we all want to be loved. And that's crucial and critical for us. And so I like to get to know people on a deep level because I think that you're interested in knowing them too. And I think we owe it to ourselves to really pull together and understand that there's really no 7 degree of separation, right? I mean, there might be more like a half a degree of separation than anything. Because we're all part of the whole. And we're all here for somewhat of the same reason. And so joining me this evening is Tony Denison, one of my favorite actors, philanthropists, and amazing people. Tony, it's really awesome to have you here live on Perspectives. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's amazing to have you on, and I'm thrilled because you have such an amazing body of work. And tell us a little bit about the show that you're on right now that everybody knows about, but if somebody has been living under a rock, give us some information on that.
Oh, well, the show that I'm pleased and proud to be a part of is called Major Crimes, and it's on TNT. And we just finished our 4th year, and we're about to start our 5th year in about 2 months. And it's a great show. It's the #1 cable show in America. I think we're right behind The Walking Dead. I think Walking Dead is the biggest numbers, but we come in right behind them. But when they're not on the air, we're the #1 show.
That's awesome.
So, it's a spin. I almost said spin-off. It's not a spin-off. It's an evolution of a previous show called The Closer that was on the air for 7 years. And everything is the same, except this one is called Major Crimes. But it's basically the same show.
Tell my listeners a little bit about the role that you play of Detective Andy Flynn.
Oh, well, my character, Lieutenant Andy Flynn, is, LAPD detective. He's a seasoned veteran, and he's a very, very loyal guy and a no-nonsense guy. And I would almost say that he's black and white. He sees things in black and white, like, there's very, very thin gray area. Andy Flynn is the kind of guy who will walk right up to the line. He won't cross it, but he'll walk right up to it, because sometimes you could play a character where the character says that the ends justify the means. And then that means a person is capable of being, of operating outside of the law even. Andy is not like that. Andy will walk right up to the line of, the ends justify the means, but he won't cross into that zone. But that's exciting to play because, you, as a character, as an actor playing a character like that, you struggle a lot of times with, you want to get right to it. As the audience is watching, he has a sense of, there's a guilty party, but yet you have to go through the convention of, what we have in our society, which is the laws and process. And while some people might find them to be cumbersome in some situations, they are so necessary to keep a civil society.
I agree with you, Tony. And, I think it's interesting, especially in your line of work. I mean, being an actor is amazing. And I think a lot of times with these characters, you either have a lot in common. There's a central theme between you and the character you play. What are some of those central themes that you think carry over from Tony to Andy and back over to Tony?
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Well, wanting to do a good job. Wanting to be, really be a team player. Be thorough in the application. of the service that he provides as basically as a civil servant. And so as being of service to a greater cause, I mean, I do that a lot in my private life with some stuff that I do because I'm in recovery. So I do a little bit of that. Well, I do a lot of that, actually. And also, I mean, there's a sense of loyalty. There's a sense that Andy, the loyalty, that's a really important part of Andy's makeup. Is a really important part of my makeup. You know, a lot of times we get caught up in situations where, we get all of our principles get there's pressure put against them sometimes to find, to just shortcut your way through a situation and to try to maintain your dignity and your honor while you're involved in a situation is a challenge. And, a lot of times to people, and it's a challenge to Andy, and it's a challenge sometimes to Tony, to me.
Tony, it's interesting. I feel, in my line of work, being a therapist and that sort of thing, we all were raised a certain way, and we were all brought up in a certain environment, and our family raised a certain way, parents, whatever. And we learned certain things, and I believe that early on perspective, those certain things that happen in our life really shape our life throughout our entire adulthood. And I think it's interesting that you bring up the concept of being of service and loyalty and being a servant to others, because you kind of touched on it a little bit, but you have done that in so many different ways. And I'd like you to maybe, shine some light on that for our listeners, because I think it's interesting when somebody really sees within their soul and really sees what the next step is. It's outside of them to really help other people to find that level as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, my background is, I'm a first generation Sicilian American. My mom and dad were born in Italy, and they were very blue collar kind of people. My dad was a truck driver. My mom was a seamstress, and they, as people, they in their own way, they were of service to people a lot. They weren't in any kind of recovery program. But my dad, was the kind of guy, 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody would call him up and say, "Hey, Johnny, my car broke down. Could you give me a hand?" And my father, he broke his back as a truck driver, trust me. He would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and get in his car and drive to wherever, this is back east in New York, and he'd drive to wherever this person is, help them get their car started. And sometimes if he was far enough away from home, then he would just go right from there and go to work, because he had to be at he had to go pick up, the tractor trailers at 6 o'clock in the morning. So he would do stuff like that and didn't ever complain, didn't ever say, "Oh my God, these people are driving me crazy." And my mom, was the same way. If a friend of hers or people in the neighborhood needed a hand, she'd go over and help them. And that's kind of where I learned how to cook. Because a lot of times when my sisters learned how to cook, my younger sisters, my mother would say, "All right, Anthony, finish while watching this food as it's cooking. I got to go over to such and such's house and help them out with something." So, so that's what I, so as a person in recovery, the idea of being of service to people, that's the way I was raised. It was like you try to help your neighbor, and your friends and your neighbors. I mean, it's an important thing. I think it's an important thing in my life. Let's look at it that way.
I agree with you. I'm one of those people. I talk to people and I explain the fact that a lot of times when we look at the news and we look at different media outlets, people have a tendency of being scared. They have a tendency of not wanting to meet their neighbors, not wanting to help their neighbors. And I try to explain the fact that, honestly, once you get to know the people that live around you and the people that are around you and really be there as a support group, you get to realize that, honestly, it's more like a village. And I find that very important. And I think that's interesting that you bring that up, because I think that some people have strayed away from that just out of fear. But what's your perspective on that? I mean, if you were talking to somebody and saying, hey, it's really amazing when you're able to come together around in your area, get to know people, but also be of service. I mean, what would be some of the things that you might say to some of our listeners that are maybe a little afraid to do so, but maybe you're understanding the fact that we are a society?
Yeah, I'm not a very religious person at all. But there's a line in the Bible which says, be kind to strangers that you meet, for you may entertain angels unaware. So, a lot of times if you think about it, if your neighbors, you never know when without asking for conditions in terms of being of service, but you never know when you might be helping somebody out, and then that person may turn around and repay you in ways that you can't even imagine. Or better yet, there's that thing in Buddhism that, like, if you throw a pebble like way out, beyond your sight line into the water, and if you stand there long enough, the ripples of that pebble will eventually come back to the shore, and then there'll be another ripple and another ripple and another ripple. So sometimes when you cast your service out there and you cast your soul out there to help people, the immediate thing, the impact of the things of the, let's say, the stone hitting the water, might have its effect right then and there, but you have no idea the ripple effect of that. You might help some person, become a better father, and then thus the kids, one of the kids may,
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Go out to find a cure for something. I mean, I don't want to make it so lofty and esoteric and all that, but you don't know. I mean, you don't know. I mean, I've heard people say, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So...
I like that.
I wish I had made it up. I didn't, but that's a part of it. So that's what I try to do with my life. And I think that a lot of what I learned as a person, I learned from my parents. They're both gone now, but they're my heroes. My mom and dad are my heroes.
I think that's interesting when you were talking, about being the cook. You learned how to cook through mom, and I don't know how many. Did you have a lot of sisters and brothers, or?
I have two younger sisters.
And so you got to learn how to cook. So tell me a little bit about your passion for that.
I also got to learn how to sew.
No way.
Because my mom, like I said, my mom was a seamstress. So a lot of times, like, if I wanted to fix something, if something was ripped, she'd go, Anthony, here, let me show you how to do it. So this way, if you ever need it done, you can just do it yourself. And so, all right. So I watched and, I learned. I mean, I can't make a suit. Let's look at it that way. I mean, I'm not that good at it. I can't sit there, look at a book and a pattern book and say, I'll make I'll make a double-breasted suit for myself. But I can do certain things, and it's empowering. My dad taught me how to fix a car, how to, I'm probably the only person I know who can, at the time when it made sense to take a motor out of a refrigerator that broke down and fix it, because my dad taught me how to do those things. I mean, now with cars not being, it used to be real easy to fix a car. Now it's a lot difficult. I don't have the tools necessary, for fixing engines the way they are. But I don't feel, when I get into a car or when I'm in a situation, I don't feel like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? My first impulse is, okay, let me just see if I can take care of it now before I have to, call a repairman.
You're self-sufficient, and I think there's something to be said about being self-sufficient. And I feel like a lot of times now I have clients that come in my office and they tell me, their child, they don't understand why their child doesn't know how to do this or that. And it normally goes back to the parenting, honestly, when they haven't actually pushed their child to fix their own food, to make their own bed, to be self-sufficient. And I think it's something that, I don't know, certain generations seem to be lacking that might need to kind of revisit that. But it's interesting. I mean, you're a tailor, you're a mechanic, you're an actor, you're a philanthropist. I mean, come on, the list goes on and on.
The tailor is a little extreme. I mean, I like the compliment, but I'm far from a tailor. I'm a mender. Let's do it that way. Not a mend clothing.
Oh, you're a mender. We'll add the mender. We'll add that in then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm able to do that. But again, all of it is it's based on I don't know. It's just based on what my parents handed down to me. Like I said, they're blue collar people, and they've taught me a lot of really good values. I sometimes miss the mark as much as the next guy. I'm not perfect. I mean, if I was perfect, I'd probably learn how to levitate and defy gravity. But I'm not at that point yet.
Well, we'll definitely do another interview after you've learned how to levitate for sure. So don't worry about that. I'm definitely would like to have the first one.
When I can levitate, I'll let Nadine know. She'll call you, and
Perfect. So tell me a little bit more about your cooking. I know that your fans love that you cook, and I know that you have a cookbook out as well that also is helping charity too.
Yes, on our show, Greg Lavoie, who is the costume designer, he thought it would be a really good idea for the Sunshine Kids, which is a organization that G.W. Bailey runs. It's a charity where they raise money to send kids with cancer on trips around the country, like about 20 kids at a time. And there's about, I don't know, eight or nine different places where the kids go. And so Greg thought it would be a great idea if all the people on the show, the actors, even the crew people and production people, if they had favorite recipes, if they put them in a book and then sold the book as, the Major Crimes cookbook. I forget what they cost each, but, they're all varying prices because it's depending on how much you want to donate to the charity. And they've been selling hundreds of these books and getting the money to give to charity. So so I have 2 recipes in there, and, it's 2 of the things I really love to make. I make this French toast kind of deal that's more like I always call it French toast Sicilian style, and it's French. The bread is rolled up in mascarpone, the sweet cheese that you get in cannolis.
Oh yeah.
And with bananas and strawberries and nutmeg and cinnamon and all the other. I mean, basically, if you're not careful, it'll put you into a diabetic coma. But if you eat too much of it. And the other thing that I make is this eggplant parmesan. And the key to it is that I just dry the eggplant in the sun to get all of the moisture and all the bitterness out of it. And then I cook it just the way anybody else might cook it, fry it and then bread it and fry it and then bake it in the oven. But the eggplant becomes like almost like fluffy, and it also absorbs more because all the moisture is taken out of it. So now it's able to absorb more of the oil and the breadcrumbs and the seasonings and the sauce. And it's really good. I mean, and I didn't used to be a fan of eggplant. I didn't care for eggplant that much, but now I love it. especially, there's a place in San Francisco in Dealey's, an Italian restaurant. I think they do the same thing because their eggplant is like fantastic.
And so, I was going to ask you, but just from listening, I believe that your mom and dad are your true role models.
Yes, they are. Yes, I don't have any other. I don't have any heroes. I don't have any football heroes or baseball heroes, I have people who I admire, like some sports people, like Yogi Berra. He's like one of my favorite athletes, and Muhammad Ali is another one. People like that. But as far as a true hero, somebody that I look up to and seek for inspiration, it would be my mom and dad.
What role does gratitude play in your day-to-day life?
Oh, I was out of work, for like six years, and I really was going crazy. I didn't know what the hell happened, and I couldn't figure it out. I was, stone cold sober, and working my recovery program, and I thought, why is this happening? And then I realized that I had to learn to be happy with who I am and not what I am. And because I turned my idea of a higher power into Santa Claus. And so I had to turn it in, I had to like look at it again as what it was initially for me, which was about, unconditional love, which is something, to strive for every single day. And, excuse me. And that's, so when I found that discovery, and then I was thinking I might have to change careers, I thought, okay, fine. And all I prayed for was to be happy and to be grateful. To be grateful that I went, a lot of people go through life and they never figure out who they are, and they never figure out how important they are, and how wonderful we all are. And when we think about it, not based on what we do, just on who we are. And when I made that discovery, gratitude and appreciation became like really important to me. Like there may be some days that, I might complain about something. And then I realized, like they say around the rooms of the recovery that I'm in, like, those are like high class problems. So if I have any problems, they're all high class problems. There are people out there who endure much more than I do and still are able to maintain dignity and be nice people. And those people, you look at them and you go, how do you do it? I know people, disability, like, really bad physical disabilities, and they stay sober. And I think, wow, wow. And then there are people who, I remember when I was a kid, I was watching the Jerry Lewis telethon, and there was the kids with muscular dystrophy, and I must have been about 7 years old or something like that. And I was watching it, and I turned to my mother, and I said, "Oh, Ma, I feel so sorry for those poor kids." And she goes, "What makes you so special? They don't want your pity. They want your acceptance." And I said, "What?" She was like, "What are you feeling sorry for them for? Why? You're so special. You're so perfect." And I was like, "Oh, And so I learned right from there about, just accept people. Try to accept people. Instead of saying, "Oh, that poor guy," "that poor woman." It's like, they're doing the best they can based on what they have. And, you can look at some of these people and you think, boy, anytime I complain about something, it's that old thing about walking down the street, complaining about the pair of shoes you have, and then you see a person with no feet, and you think, huh? Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I totally agree with you.
So,
I think that a lot of people, though, right now, honestly struggle with accepting themselves. And so if somebody can't really accept themselves or see the light within them or unconditionally love themselves, it's hard to do that outside. It has to start with.
Yeah, it's totally hard. It's totally hard. I was 1 month away from total bankruptcy. And I just kept trying to maintain my dignity. There were times I was like, unhappy, but I thought, okay, just pray for happiness, just pray for happiness. And then little things started happening here and there along the way. And stuff started to come back into my life. But at the point that it came back into my life, I realized that all the stuff that was happening in my life that was good was the result of my happiness, not the cause of it. I used to be totally involved with whatever you gave me would make me happy. Whatever came my way would make me happy. Instead of realizing that just being happy is enough and that maybe other stuff will come to you. I mean, I know it sounds like, some new age philosophical kind of thing, but I'm not. I'm not even remotely involved in that stuff. I'm just sort of a blue-collar guy, I'd like to think anyway.
When people are dealing with addiction and thinking or pondering the 12-step program, what advice would you give someone right now that might be battling addiction and is wondering if there's more out there?
I guess at a certain point in time, you have to ask yourself a question, what you're doing and how you're feeling. Is there any way possible that you could say that this is something that's productive and something to your benefit? Because eventually, like with anybody who's involved in whether it be drugs and drinking or just drugs, you get to a point where ultimately they stop working. They just stop working. They stop doing what you think that you hope that they were doing for you. And when that happens, you're just basically going through the motions of continually taking the drugs and doing the drugs, the drinking, and it's not having the...
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Give the desired effect. In fact, all it is you just putting stuff in your body with the hope that it's going to make you feel better. And it doesn't happen. And then when you realize, along with other people have said about sobriety, that the power is within. The power is within all of us. We have the power to do amazing things for ourselves and for others. And we're not look. Einstein used somewhere between 18 and 20% of his brain power. That's what people maintain. And that, most of us, we're lucky we use, 13 to 15%. So that means that there's almost 80% more that can be used. I guarantee you that if in your exploration of trying to find alternatives to drugs and alcohol, if you seek within, the possibility exists that you could tap into more of your brain energy, more of your brain power, and the things that you would be capable of would be legendary.
Tell us more. I've done some reading and definitely done my research on you, Tony, but tell me about some of your avid fans called hashtag the Flynn Girls.
Oh, the Flynn Girls. Oh, yeah, they're a great group. It's fans of the show who now additionally become fans of mine, but they become fans of my character, specifically Flynn, and they've named themselves the Flynn Girls, and they're part of a group of what would be considered Shandy people, which would be Sharon and Andy, Mary McDonald's character and my character, the budding, romance that's happening there with them. And it's just wonderful. I get, texts and emails and Facebook notifications and Instagram notifications and Twitters, tweets from these people, and they're just wonderful. It's just, I'm like flattered beyond anything you can imagine.
That's awesome. A support group is awesome, especially when they care and it's a good fan base, and that it's worth its weight in gold. And it really does have good positive feedback.
It is to me.
So, is there anything you can tell us about the upcoming, this upcoming new shows here? This new the new.
No, I haven't got a clue, to be honest with you.
Really?
I don't know. Well, there's a 5-part episode coming up. It's next 5 episodes are all part of the same story. So it's like a 5-part episode, and it's really it's a really interesting murder. It's a murder mystery thing, which we usually solve in one episode, but this takes the group 5 episodes to figure out. And so it's very exciting. I can't really give away the plot because then they would, they'd send people to my door to beat me up. But no, I know that Kieran Giovanni, who plays Amy Sykes, she has some wonderful stuff to do in this 5-part episode, and so does Michael Paul Chan, who plays Lieutenant Tao, and then there's stuff going on for Mary and me, and GW. There's some good stuff for GW as well, and it's fun. It's fun.
Well, I know that a lot of people will be looking forward to seeing you and seeing the new episodes and being a part of the Major Crimes. And last but not least, I know that you'll be making your way into Texas here soon to support the charity that you work with, Sunshine Kids. And I look forward to interviewing you here in the future on that. And that's basically an organization that's dedicated to helping children with cancer, right?
Right.
To provide support for them and activities for them. That sounds like an amazing organization.
Yeah, it's been in existence for over 35 years now, and G.W. Bailey, he's been involved with them for 34 years. He's been the executive director of it for 34 years, and he just never tires of it. I mean, I don't even know where this man gets the energy that he has. It's incredible. I mean, it's like our show might wrap early on a Friday night, and he's heading to the airport to fly to Florida, and then he'll arrive in Florida, Saturday morning. He'll attend some event Saturday night. He'll leave that event and then fly, let's say, to Boston. He'll go to Boston, and then Sunday afternoon there'll be some kind of an event. And then Sunday night, he's on a plane coming back to L.A. And this is what he does. I don't know how many countless times he does this. He'll fly all over the country for fundraising events. And then, ultimately what they do for the kids is the money that they collect, the donations that they collect, they use it towards a trip. One of the trips they have is a trip that's called the Hollywood trip. And they bring anywhere from 15 to 20 kids, or maybe 15 to 25 kids, depending, from different parts of the country, and they all converge in Hollywood. And then they go to all the amusement parks. They go to Disneyland. They go to Universal. They have a police escort taking them from the Sheraton Universal Hotel, that donates a lot of time and energy for these kids, and sends the kids. They'll send the kids over to the soundstage with a police escort that's only reserved for the President of the United States. It's like 50 cars with sirens blaring, and it's
cool.
Really exciting. And they do that, and then they have they watch a screening of an episode of Major Crimes, and then from there they go out to Malibu, and they have they go swimming in the ocean for the kids who can go swimming in the ocean, and then they put them They give them a really nice dinner somewhere along there, and then the next day there's another event that they go to, and sadly for some of the kids, it's the last trip they're going to take in their lives. And they do these trips without their mothers and fathers, so that they can be more like a kid and not have their parents worrying about what they're doing. And
so that's amazing. And I look forward to having you back on the show to learn more about the Sunshine Kids, to learn more about what's going on in the season with your show, with you as Detective Andy, as well as, you're very versatile. And I look forward to having you back on. And thank you for being just so candid on Live Your True Life Perspectives. And if there's one last thing you'd like to leave for my listeners, that would be great.
Well, obey the law. No, what I'd leave to your listeners is I always sign my audit, live your dreams. So if you have a dream of something you want to do, go ahead and live it. Give it as good a shot as you can, and stay away from the people who tell you you can't. Thank them very much for their concern, but go off and do it anyway. And the worst thing that can happen is you'll have tried it and say, hey, it's not what I thought it is, and maybe you move on to some other exciting adventure.
I love it. Thank you, Tony Denison, for joining us. I want you to have a wonderful rest of your week, and thank you again.
You got it. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Hey, I'll see you in Texas.
Most definitely. I find it so interesting. When you're talking to different people, you get to understand their background, their environment, their perspective. And that's what this show is all about, is getting to know people exactly who they are and taking it to the next level. So tonight we got to talk to Tony Denison, and I know that a lot of you out there are major fans of his show and major fans of his character, but more than just the character that he plays in the show, but his real true character, his personality. And, we were talking about gratitude earlier in the show, and I think that is so instrumental. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I was able to realize the impact that gratitude has in our life. And, for the longest time, I really thought that it was just all about happiness, how we could be happy and all that stuff. And it was interesting how Tony brought up the fact that he saw God kind of as a Santa Claus at one point in time, granting wishes or giving gifts. And I think it's interesting. It's not until we really realize what we have within and who we truly are, that we really understand life. And right now I ask all my listeners to take a moment, and I think this moment is going to grow into minutes, hours, days, a lifetime. Begin by taking this moment to start thinking about your life, but better yet, who you are. And I think it's interesting when we're able to step back and stop judging ourselves based on our looks or our material accomplishments. I think when we're able to step back and actually see our life for more than just the resources, the house we live in, the career we have, the title of the role that we play at work. In this situation, Tony has a role on TV. But it's interesting because the things that really give him joy, he obviously takes a lot of pride in his work, but it's also giving back. And I think that's the most interesting thing that we have to offer is our ability to give back. But it's all about that unconditional love. And I know that there's a lot of folks out there listening right now who are giving back every single day of their life, who understand and compute the necessity of what it means to really give back, what it means to really be out there and to put your soul and heart out there on the line every day and not think twice about it. And, I think it's always interesting because I meet so many different people in so many different places doing so many different things with so many different titles. But the thing that really brings us all together is what? We're human beings, right? We're souls inhabiting these beings. We're light energy. And it's interesting because I hear often, I was right before I came into the studio to do this interview with Tony. I was in a meeting, and one of the ladies I was in the meeting with said, you know what, I wish I knew, then what I know now. And I said, well, yeah, we all do. If we could all know what we know now, and we knew that when we were 18, think about it. It'd be like shooting fish in a barrel, right? We would figure it all out. We would totally bypass the keg party. We'd do the keg parties a couple of times, then bypass that and move on, right? But me included, some of you listening too, we didn't bypass the parties at all. We got our doctorate in partying. We went out, we got the bachelor's, we got the master's, and we got the doctorate. Because you know what? We were looking for something. We were looking for our own value. We were looking to understand our life better. We were looking to identify ourselves, to give ourselves a diagnosis, to sit there and say, you know what?
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. When you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself, talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
This is who I am. And this validates me. And I understand because it was a long time until I kind of figured out purpose. And I figured out what was up about all this stuff. And it took a while because it took a lot of trial and error, but it also took a lot of me looking within to see who I truly am. And at first I didn't know if I was going to be happy looking within. I didn't know if I was going to want to see and feel what I was going to find within. What if I started crying? What if I started bawling? What if I started screaming and throwing things? But I got past the scared and I got past the stressed out and I moved into it and I said, you know what? If the Kardashians can have a TV show, I'm allowed to go within myself and find my true identity. Because you know what? That means that anything can happen. That means that anything can happen and anything can be reality. And that's when I really started doing a lot of meditation. And I want to do a few shows here in the future on real meditation. Because I know that when I first started trying to learn meditation, I would go to these people and sit there and just close my eyes and be like, this is BS. I don't know how long I got to sit here and breathe like this, but you know what? There's nothing changing, okay? And it took me years and years to stumble on a technique. And once I stumbled onto a technique of somebody that I really respect, a guy named Druvalo McKesnick, and I stumbled upon that, and I realized, I was like, wow, anything is possible. But the main thing that it taught me is that I'm way more than I ever thought I was. I'm way more than I ever thought I was. And what I mean by that is that I know that you and I and most of us suffer from the fact that we only see ourselves usually from the outside looking in, wondering what other people think about us, or where do we stand, or how do we compete. And there were years and years of my life where I would see my friends that were just, totally just, really beating it out when it came to money and financial and titles. And I remember I thought that was it. And I took a step back because I realized at the time, even now, I don't have those titles. And now I realize I don't want those titles. And if I get the titles, it comes with wherever I'm going. And the titles don't really mean anything. And it was funny. I was talking to a client the other day, and this is what I do. You know, I'm a therapist. And I was talking to a client the other day, and they said, you know, all I want in my life is the acceptance from my dad. All I ever wanted was my dad to accept me and to care about me and to love me and to see me as being worthy. And to look at me in the eye and be like, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, son. That's all I want my dad to do is just accept me for who I am. And I looked at him and I said, you know, I don't know if you're going to be happy with what I have to say about that. And I said, because I know that you do not accept yourself. And we look for things outside of ourselves when we don't offer it to ourselves to begin with. Right? So think about it. If I don't accept myself and I'm looking outward, outside of myself, to my parents or to my spouse or to my friends or family members, needing their acceptance because I don't have any, I'm probably not going to get it. And the best example that I can explain is I know that a lot of us have had a position where we have had a job and we were able to easily stumble upon another job that was better, that paid better, that had better hours. But we had to give a 2-week or a month heads up to explain that we were leaving. We had to give our employee heads up. And we found this great job. We found another job that we could actually use more of our skill set. And we had a lot more going on, and it was really amazing. But we already had a job, remember? And we've all been on that other side of the coin, too, where we need a job. We need a job, but we don't have one. And it seems like it's really difficult to find one. And it can seem, and it really does take more time to find one. It just does. And it's the same as acceptance and love. When we actually accept ourselves for everything, and we stop judging ourselves in painful ways, when we're able to finally look at ourselves in the mirror and smile and realize, man, we got something here. I find that's when we start relishing in all that life has to offer, and we stop looking toward other people to validate us. And I think we heard from Tony explain very much how important gratitude is in his life, but also him going through recovery, the 12-step process, giving back. All this goes to reaffirming one's belief in themselves. And I find it interesting because sometimes when we're overwhelmed with our own problems, we have a tendency of not being able to see the forest through the trees. And I explain a lot to my clients, and I'm explaining to you right now that sometimes it's better to try to help other people. And in the process of giving back, you're actually giving to yourself as well. And we're able to see that a lot of times our problems, yes, might be giving us difficulty, might be pushing us a little bit. But after all, if you think about life clearly, you realize that these things that push us is part of it. But I'm going to take it a step further real quick. I know that some people have only thought about this and other people have maybe pondered on this, and some of you are living it this way right now. But it wasn't until the other day when I was talking to one of my interns who went to college. They graduated high school while they were interning with me and went to college. And I remember they'd call me, right before the new semester began. It was the day before. And they sent me pictures of this campus and they told me about the classes they were enrolled in. And I was so happy. And then I kind of got sad. I was like, man, I want to go back to school. And my previous intern on the phone said, you know what, Ashley, you should get your doctorate here. You'd be great here. You love it here. You love Austin, man. And you should get your doctorate here. And I was like, man, you might be onto something. You might be onto something. Maybe somehow or not, I can get down there and do both. I can work up here and get down there and do whatever I got to do. And I was like, man, and I started thinking about how school was. You know how we all go back to reminiscing about school. And, I kind of thought about it. I said, hey, I got to go. And he's like, I got to go too. I said, good luck with your classes. I know you're going to be great. Let's talk later on this week. And I got off the phone. And I remember I walked into the studio. And for a second, I kind of got sad because you know what? I know that I'm not going to go back to school right now. And I'm not sure if I'm going to go back. And I kind of got sad. I started getting a little nostalgic. And something just kind of came into my mind, and I realized, you know what? I'm not missing school at all. And I just realized that life is a big, giant classroom. And we're learning every single second of the day. And right when I realized that, I began to imagine my favorite class. And my favorite class was in second grade, Miss Jackson's class. Mrs. Jackson was the coolest teacher ever. She used to help me, and she used to give me tutorials after school because I was one of those ADD kids, you know what I mean? Attention deficit hyper disorder kids. And so I always got an A or a B in Miss Jackson's class, but I visualized Miss Jackson's room and the dry erase board and the chalkboard and her desk and all that stuff. And I realized that life is a big classroom. And so as I went to different meetings that whole week, I didn't look at it like, oh, I'm going into this business meeting, or I'm going into this meeting with the radio folks, or I'm going in this meeting with these folks. I looked at it as a classroom. And all of a sudden, things started changing because I wasn't so held up with my beliefs of what I wanted to happen or what I had to have happen. Instead, I actually just got to be part of it. And ever since I've been seeing life like that, I haven't taken things so personal. I haven't really gotten upset about anything. You know what's really cool, too, is that things have been going closer to my way than ever. And you know why? Because I'm able to step back and see life clearly. And that's why I love doing these interviews on Perspectives, because we get to talk to major cool people like Tony Denison, who went from one position in life to another position in life. And as you hear, he's giving back completely. And he's in one of our favorite shows, playing one of our favorite characters. And there's a lot of similarities between him and Detective Andy. And so I ask you now to begin to see life as that classroom. To allow yourself to walk into every meeting and every situation with a bright-eyed, honest, authentic, but gracious perspective. And as we do this, the coolest thing about it is that life becomes easier. Because we've gotten rid of the ego, we've moved the ego out for a little while, we put him in the back seat. We're in one of those Volkswagen vans. They're in the ego's in the third seat row in the back, you know. And we begin to realize really all the options we have, because we have the ability to create and we have the ability to choose. And once we get into that classroom, we start remembering these abilities we have again. And we're like, holy hand grenade, Superman, where have I been at? I'm ready to take this to the next level because I can and I will. And that's what's so awesome. And that's what life was meant to be. We're supposed to make the most out of it. We're supposed to really lead from our heart and love unconditionally. And have that gratitude and that love and that desire to keep being better than we were yesterday. Because it's not a competition with your neighbor. It's not a competition with your best friend. It's about bettering you every minute of every day. And so I appreciate and I thank Tony Denison for coming on on the show. I appreciate his agent as well, having him on. Thank you, Nadine. And also, I shout out to the Flynn girls because, it's amazing when you have people that support you and care about you. It's golden. It's golden. So I ask you now to go and support your friends and to be there for you and to be there for them because they're going to directly be back there for you. And if they're not, it's time to find some new friends. So check me out on ashleyburgess.com when you get a chance. And also, feel free to leave a message here on iTunes letting me know some of the shows and some of the people you'd like me to interview and some of the things that you want to hear more about. Because that's what I'd like to know, because this show is for you. Tweet me at Ashley Burgess, hashtag LYTL, at Ashley Burgess, hashtag LYTL, and LYTL stands for Live Your True Life. Lots of great shows coming out. Check out various topics and discussions, and I look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. We'll be back this time in 3 shakes.